I'm Ed Stevens from Yamaha UK. I'm here to talk about some general tips for the fuel system on our outboard as a boat user, and what we would do in terms of our daily checks and how we'd look to either put the boat into storage or bring it out of storage at the end of the season. Tip number one, we'd check our fuel system. We would check for no leaks and look at the quality of the fuel that we have going to the engine and into the engine. The outboard is connected to a fuel tank, either a portable fuel tank like this or a larger inbuilt fuel tank in the boat that would have some form of water separator filter on it. Our aim is ultimately to keep clean petrol going into the engine to give us the most efficient usage. The fuel system is primed on a primer bulb that will pump fuel into the engine. There, we would pump this bulb until that's hard. From fuel going through our fuel filter, we would look to see a nice, clear liquid. If we see either a cloudy liquid or a very yellow liquid, it means that we have either old fuel or fuel with water inside it. There is a red ring in the bottom. Should you get any contamination, this ring will float and hold water below this line and clean fuel above this line. The fine filter within here will separate this out. However, this should be looked at periodically and inspected. You can use the drain on the bottom here to drain into a container any water should you get water in your fuel tank. Should this filter become full, then the fuel and water mixture would work its way into the engine. There is another filter on the back of the engine here. This also has a float inside it that, if the float comes up, will then indicate a display on your gauge with a warning of water in fuel. Should this happen, then you need to stop, drain the fuel here, also check your fuel supply to your engine. Tip number two is we would periodically drain the fuel filter to make sure that we see clear fuel. By way of a comparison, we'd look at this as a clean new filter compared to this, where we can clearly see the very dark colour of the fuel within that filter. That would lead us to be very wary about the quality of that fuel and want to drain that. Filters would be replaced on a 12-monthly or 100-hour basis as part of the maintenance schedule as prescribed in the owner's manual. Tip number three, if your engine is small enough to have a fuel line connector like this on the front of the engine, you can, if you're going to leave the engine into storage, you can disconnect this, now turn your engine on, let your engine run at idle, and let this use up all the fuel that is within the engine fuel filters and the vapor separating tank of the high pressure side of the fuel filter system. To disconnect the fuel, you just clip like this, look at that. You'll see that the connector on the engine has come out and sealed, and you look at and inspect the end of the fuel hose connector on your fuel line there. Running the fuel out of the engine is the best way to ensure that when you restart the engine in the spring, perhaps, you can pump in fresh fuel that would then be water-free in the event of any water or condensation, and your engine would run more efficiently and more reliably straight away in the spring to ensure that your boat is reliable once you're on the water.